My name is Heather. If y'all want to stand, we'll do the 12 steps or 8 principles, one or the other. 12 steps. We admitted we are powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, that our lives have become unmanageable. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Romans 7:18. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Philippians 2:13. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Romans 12:1. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Lamentations 3:40. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. James 4:10. We humbly ask him to remove all our shortcomings. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1:9. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Luke 6:31. We made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Matthew 5:23-24. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10:1. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and power to carry that out. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Colossians 3:16. Having had a spiritual experience as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. Galatians 6:1. Thank you.
Hello. Hey, glad to be back. I see a lot of new faces. I'm going to be moving some things around here to get comfortable, making sure everything's working. We are in week 6 of our series that we've been going through, and this is kind of our wrap up. We do have workbooks. She's got them in her hand. If you're new and you don't have one, we have a few left. So if you'd like to have one, you can grab one and kind of go through with us. And some of you, I see you brought your books and your journals and stuff, and that's great. Before I get started in our talk today, I want to kind of take you somewhere what we were talking about last time I was here. We had said that we were going to do a couple pages and do a couple things. Well, once again, God changed the direction a little bit, and I've been trying to think about how can we wrap this up? How can we bring everything after 5 weeks of doing this? How can we bring it all together, in a session tonight? So I want to make sure I leave you with something that is an action-oriented, something that you can actually do and get results from, and not just information. But what I'm going to do is kind of take you from the beginning. So she's almost got the books to you. This will make sense. And as I flip the next page, we're on the first page of the book called W.A.I.T, What Am I Thinking? That's a program that I wrote 3 years ago. And it's all based really after the transforming your life by the renewing of your mind. Take every thought captive. And we went through 5 weeks of training on that. And where I started, how many of you have been here the whole time? I see a lot of faces have been here the whole time. So where we were when we started, this may not have made as much sense as it does hopefully now. And if you've been able to catch us sometime in those 5 sessions, each one kind of builds on the other, so you can actually go back and watch the videos you want to. I brought all the handouts that we've been given. They're out there. You can take them. So if you missed a session, you can kind of take the worksheet that we did, the Bible verses that go with what we did. I made sure I had all that stuff, and I did a lot of typing last night to give you another worksheet today with a whole bunch of Bible verses, on it relating to what we're covering. So in the book, at the end of it, we stopped. Just to let you know, we stopped at this page here, winning versus being a winner. And I said we were going to cover the next 4 pages. Well, we're not. The next 4 pages are all different attitudes and stuff. Because we've been talking about changing, our outcomes by changing perspectives. Everything we've been talking about is changing perspectives. And whose perspective are we supposed to be going by? God's, okay? And we've been talking about all the other perspectives that get in our way of doing what God's calling us to do or God's promises. So we've done a lot to break those down, discover them, bring them out. I passed out journals so that you guys could journal everything. So now we're ready to kind of wrap it up and actually use everything, that we did. So we're going to do just a quick review. So for the ones who haven't been here, you're going to get to see kind of the foundation. And as I go through it, like I said, the handouts are out there. So if you need something to back up, to follow through with what we're doing. So I'm just going to go real fast through to get us to a point where we can actually then take action steps on the things that we've done. Does that sound good? Okay, because last time I was here, I thought that was so powerful. You guys were really giving excellent input. We were really, I thought, breaking through some things, the talk I had afterwards, and during the next week, some of you made comments and things about some of the things you were able to do. That's all why we're here. So the very first thing that we talked about was this tree. And we started talking about, the tree and how it grows. And, it has internal, things like the roots and all that. It has external things like the water and the rain and the sun and all that make it grow, right? And we are also living creatures, and we also have internal factors. We have external factors that make us who we are. So if nothing else, this right here is powerful, understanding that, why do I do what I do? Who am I? How did I get here? And how did I get to be the person I am? And then, how do I change the person I am if I need to change? That's what the whole thing's really been about. So we have the internal and we have the external. And we talked about those things create our perceptions. Our perceptions are actually down there in the heart there, if you will. Those things create perception. So all the different factors that, influenced us. And so what were some of the influences you guys remember? What were some of the internal things? Was our personality, right? I'll say that one because that was week 3. We covered that. We all have basic nature. We all have a human nature. We all have different personalities, and we are all different. That's where a lot of conflict comes from already. Everybody tries to look at someone else as they're like them, and we're not like everybody else. That's right there can cut down a whole lot of anxiety and frustration, and just by understanding that we are different, and it's okay. We're not enemies because we think different, because we see things different. We can still get along. We can still accept person for who they are and for their opinions and their beliefs, right? Okay? And God has a lot to say about that. And you can get that on that sheet of paper out there. So that was some of the, then they have the external. The external is what we've been really hammering a lot. And today we're really going to take that one, because on the external, we have all the external programming. And our first program that we get is from who? Our parents, right? When we're born. We have our parents, and then we have our siblings, then we have our bigger family, then we have our friends, then we have our school, then it grows, and our circle grows. And one of the biggest influences that we have is also our culture, which is social media has a lot to do with. And that was a huge topic. I could have done a couple weeks on social media, how it affects the behavior in our country and how it affects what we do, believe it or not. And does that make more sense after we've been through 5 weeks? The first week you might have been going, I'm not too sure about that, but you are not in the ones who have been here for 5 weeks. They're saying, yes, absolutely, I can see exactly how that's happening. And I didn't even want it to happen. I didn't even accept it to happen, but it happens anyway, because they program us in our subconscious mind in all kinds of different ways. They get us to believe things that aren't true. Like last week we talked about you're either following God's promises or listening to Satan's lies. And because he's the one that's telling us all the things that we can't do and all the things that take us away from what God says that, we can do. So those are the external forces that create who we are. It's everybody we've ever been around. It's everything we've listened to, everything we've read, influence, that internal, external. And so what happens is all those things create our beliefs, our values, our perceptions. You'll hear me use the word perceptions a lot, because that's really down to the nitty-gritty of all the beliefs and values come from perceptions. All right? And we want to look at everything from God's perspective. Everything we've done has been about God's perspective. God's perspective of how he sees you more than how you see yourself. And we should see ourselves as the way God sees us, right? Right? Okay. Okay. So all those things create our thoughts. Our thoughts then, have an attitude attached. And when I talked about that, I kind of skipped over it the first time because I didn't really want to ruffle too many feathers, but now I'm okay with ruffling feathers because you guys know me. But, an attitude really is how we feel about what we think. So an attitude really is deeper than how people use it on the surface, but everything we think has a feeling attached. And I don't use the word feelings in my presentation. Feelings can really mislead us. Feelings can take us down the wrong path. Feelings should come after we do the right thing. Or if we do the wrong thing, we're going to have a feeling about that. But attitude is different. An attitude reflects everything we do. Everything we do with an attitude, right? I can look around the room, and I won't point anybody out. I can see all different kinds of attitudes. I can say, what is this guy? Who is this guy? What's he talking about? And you can see them. Well, how long is this going to take? Isn't he about done? Or, you see all kinds of different attitudes, right? When you're looking around at people, you look at your kids, you see attitudes, even if they don't say anything. I mean, we could go forever on that. But we have an attitude, gets attached, and then it comes out. Everything that gets put in eventually comes out. So those thoughts and attitudes come out in everything we do, every action we take, how we walk, how we talk, what we say, what we post, everything else comes out. And then it creates habits. And this is where we're going to get to the nitty-gritty in a second. Because our habits, we just start doing it because that's the way we've always done it. We do it because that's the way our family did it. We learn those behaviors, we learn those habits from our environment, from everything that we're doing. And our habits then create our fruit. And I brought, actually, and I'm not going to go through it because of time, but I brought 7 verses just on the fruit. Okay? And one of the ones that stuck out with me today, because a lot of them we've hit on in the other 5 weeks, was you are known by your fruit. And that one kind of slapped me earlier when I was just kind of looking at it. You are known by your fruit. You can say whatever you want to say, but ultimately you're known by your fruit. And if we say we're a Christian, we say we're a believer, people are going to look at our fruit and use that to say, are they really? And this is not negative stuff I'm saying. I'm not picking on anybody. For the ones that know me will say, yeah, we're doing this because we're trying to discover things that are barriers to our success. And so that's very important to understand. The fruit then is what? That's fruit's all of our outcomes that we get out of our life. That's our goals. That's our relationships. That's our health. Health, how we think about who we are and about our own health makes a big difference, doesn't it? All right? And it has to do with everything really in the future. And our theme, which is on the front of your book, has been for 22 years. This is kind of what I kind of model under. When there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And if anything, through the 5 weeks that we've been together, if there's anything, I would hope that we gave you a glimmer of hope. If you didn't have any coming in, I hope you had some, because we showed you that you are in control of your future. You have a choice. You can follow God no matter what the world is doing. Remember, it's not conformed to the world, it's transformed, okay? And the world is trying to conform us, aren't they? Everything that's going on, they're trying to get us away to think the way they think, do what they do, have the values that they have, and boy, it's a battle. They're trying to steal our kids, okay? And they're trying to steal our minds. But when we understand all those things, if we allow them to do it, create our future. What do we want our future to look like? And on week 3, we spent some time in our journal trying to get you guys to see, and write down some things. What do you want? How would you want your future to look like? Not your prediction of what you think it's going to look like doing what you're already doing. See, goals and stuff are about what would you want it to look like? Because we have a hard time with that. Some of you would have a lot of hard time with that because most of us do. But see, here's what's happening. When you say, I don't know, I really don't know. The reason you don't know is because you're trying to base it on what you think is going to happen, right? We get in our own way. We try to rationalize everything instead of looking at God's promises and say, what's He want your life to look like? And then we opened up that and we did a whole session, how's God see you? How's God love you? And what are His promises and how does He want your life? What's He want your life to look like? And that should match. If we're looking at things from God's perspective instead of our own, then those things should match. So you got to start thinking, what I want my life to look like? Because when you start identifying that, you're going to make different choices if you really believe that, right? You with me? Okay. All right. We're going to keep it going. So all that stuff, creates the outcomes. And if we want to change anything, and everybody has something we want to change. I mean, I don't know a person that I've ever talked to in my life that doesn't have something they want to change. When I work in the schools, we go through this same thing with kids in the schools. And when we get to this point, we say, there's something you want to change. What if you want to get one better grade on one subject? That's one thing you want to change. What would you have to do? And you go back down the tree. And so if you don't have one of these trees, I want you to pick one up, that's laying out there on the counter, because you can use this as a tool. I've used it for 20 years. We used it in counseling sessions. We use it one-on-one. We use it with our kids. We use it with every scenario, because everything fits in here. And I know I'm talking to you directly, so everything I'm saying is to you, no matter who you are, even if I don't know you, because there's one qualification for everything I've covered, and that's what I like, is this is for people that are human beings. If you are a human being, everything I say applies to you, because this is how we are created, in the image of God, and we got to start looking at it that way. So we have to go back down the tree. So we got to change habits, and if we have to change habits, what do we have to do? We have to change actions, right? And we can all get that far, but why does that always seem to come back around? Right? That's right, because we didn't go any further. Most people stop right there. I mean, even a lot of programs stop right there. They say, quit doing this and start doing this. And you say, okay, I'm going to try. And you try to do that for a while, and all of a sudden you slip back, right? Why? Well, we covered that. We spent 3 weeks covering that. And what happens to that? Because what happened, we didn't go any further. We have to change our attitude towards it. So we have a lot of things in the Scripture, that talk about our attitude. How are we supposed to look at things? Is it supposed to be anxiety and fear and depression? No, that's not the fruit of the Spirit, okay? So we're told how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to view things too. So we got to change our attitude. In order to change our attitude, we have to go one step deeper, and we have to start changing our thinking. And in order to change our thinking, we have to drop down into the roots and get to the root of the behavior, and we get back down into our perceptions. So when on that first slide, it says change perceptions, change outcomes. And if you understand that right there, and you can keep saying that to yourself, everything else can fall in place by the steps that we gave you. And we're going to give you some different steps today because you guys asked me some last week if we can give you some actual things. We gave you some self-regulation tools. We gave you some exercises that you could use, for different personalities to regulate yourself so that you can get into the prefrontal cortex. But we'll talk about that real briefly too. So anyway, we get down into perceptions. So that's where we're going to go. So we're back down into perceptions. And I skipped this last time we did this presentation because, right, I did skip it. Nobody went through this, I believe. Okay? And this is what they call the competency continuum. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that before. I have that poster on my wall at my office. And everybody is there in some area. I could say, I love guitar. How many of you can play guitar? I just absolutely love guitar. I've always all my life wanted to play the guitar, but I bought a lot of guitars. I've never been able to play one. Could I, maybe if I spend enough time and devoted enough energy to it, but I don't have the gift. I don't have the natural gift for music. So if I said I wanted to play, guess what? I might be unconsciously incompetent. That means you just don't know what you don't know. I don't know really much about, music. I'd have to learn. But then we become consciously incompetent. And we bumped you up there hopefully the second week. And consciously incompetent means, yeah, there's something I want to change. I know there's something better for me. I know there's something that I need to be doing. But I'm not doing it. That means you know about it, but not quite there of making it a habit yet. You're not really there quite doing it yet. And the next step, let me back up one. Because right between those two steps is something major. And that's awareness. You can't be aware of something you're not aware of. So we did some self-discovery. We went through some things that challenged you in some areas. And it challenges me whenever I do it. Challenge myself to think a little bit differently. Maybe my perspective is off a little bit. Remember last time we hit that really deep about don't believe everything you think? Because a lot of things we think are true or think are right, but if they're not taking us down God's will, if they're not taking us where His promises are, then our thinking's probably wrong. So we would have to go back down to the bottom of the tree and fix something. So we become consciously incompetent. Then we start catching it. The more we say, wait, what am I thinking, which was our theme. That's on the front of your book. And every time we say, wait, what am I thinking, we're saying, let's think about the consequences of that. What am I doing right now? What's the consequences going to be? How's it going to affect my future? How's it going to affect other people? Do I have better choices? You remember that week we spent the 1 week just covering the 5 questions. Do I have someone that can help me, guide me, with that? And am I being peer pressured, which is a major portion. So we have to say we're consciously competent. That means you're not perfect. That means you're going to still mess up. You're going to still make mistakes. Everybody does. But what that means is we get better at catching it. So when we start having that thought, you go, wait, what am I thinking? And you go, oh, I've done that before. I know where that takes me. Okay? And if more you catch that, you'll train your brain to start doing it more, better. Because you're fighting the old self that's saying, do it. It feels good. I like it. And see, we have that constant battle going on all the time. Right? We all know that. We all do. Everybody does. Right? But once we become consciously competent, at least we can catch it more often and try to redirect it. And then after a while, that one area of your life, or that one thing that you're trying to change, you do change. And it becomes not who you are anymore. And then you're unconsciously competent, which is a habit, which means you just unconsciously do it because that's now who you are. Does that all make sense? I'm trying to wrap up 5 weeks in just a few minutes, but I'm hoping that's making sense. Because that's where we all are at some point. We all have to go through those steps. Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes we just don't know because nobody's ever told us. And a lot of the things I covered in week 2 and 3 with the brain and stuff, a lot of you've never heard before. Some of you heard about the amygdala, some of you haven't. You don't know, but you all heard about fight, flight, or freeze, okay, which is triggered by the amygdala. We just didn't know what was causing it and what was happening in our brain. So, with that in mind, we just go all the way down to into the roots, into the mind, and into your book. And there's the 5 questions. So, in your journal, if you haven't had, do we have journals left too? No journals left. Okay. If we need some, I can probably try to get some more if some people needed them. But in your journal, on the very first page of the journal, is this page right here, and this is also the first page of the book. And that's the 5 questions that I just talked about. And the more you go through that, the more you're training your brain to go against all the things that is taking you down the wrong path. So here's the questions. The thing about consequences, I don't like to skip. I hit it every time because if we understand how negative we really are as human beings, we've been programmed so much. We focus on so much negative. And if I said the word consequences, there's going to be consequences to your action. What's the first thing you think of? Punishment. You say that to kids in the school, and I do. You ought to hear the kids in the school. They go, "Oh, we're going to be grounded. We're going to lose our phone. Can't see our friends. We're going to," and they go over and over and over. I say, really? That's what you think when you hear the word consequences? But here's where I want to take you: is to shift your perspective, change it, reverse it, and how about consequences that are positive? Hey, if you do this, you're going to get this, right? Is that how we do, though? No, we automatically always gravitate towards the negative. If we can catch ourselves saying, wait, what am I thinking? I could have positive consequences by doing positive actions. And that will actually drive you. I don't want to go into all the psychology of it and the neuroscience of it, but negative does not drive you very well. It doesn't usually work very well. If you've ever been told, somebody told you, okay, you stop doing that, and that doesn't usually work too well. Because our brain doesn't like that. Our brain wants to defend our own perspectives and our own values and beliefs, so we'll defend something even if it's wrong. We'll defend something even if it's hurting us. Okay? Isn't that crazy why we do these things? And that's why I created the thing that says, wait, what am I thinking? I'm going, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Okay? We can do this, and guess what? Who gives you the instructions to do all of this? God. The Bible, whether you're a believer or not, in fact, if you're not a believer, that's fine. All this stuff applies to you too because you're still human. You can still get a lot of wisdom out of the Bible even if you're not a believer. Every step is in there about how to, for your life. And we've already covered the questions, and I got to keep them moving. We talked about the brain real quick, and I know this was really stimulated a lot of people when we started talking about, the amygdala, the hippocampus. And the hippocampus, I wanted to cover a point there now that we've been further. And the hippocampus where it stores the information is like a computer. Remember talking about that? It's a computer that's in your brain. It doesn't know right or wrong, good or bad. It only has information. So you have information stored in there all the way back to where you're born. Some of that information you're still living off of today. You're still making decisions off of today, and it was incorrect information, or it's not information that's getting you where you want to go. So we have to go back into that computer and reprogram that because that's driving so much of our life today. And I wish I could spend another hour or two on that part because that is major. If you can understand that how much your life has been dictated by things that happened to you in the past, and that's where we're going here, and that's where I'm taking you this direction. Okay? We're talking about the yoke earlier, in the verse they opened up with. I mean, that's really what it's about. Okay? We all have these things. We all have these things we carry with us in life. But what do we do with them? And the prefrontal cortex is where we're rational, and that's where that's where our decision making, comes from. So with all that in mind, we're not in our rational thoughts when we're using drugs, right? Or when we're using alcohol. We talked about that last time. These things get in and mess up our neurotransmitters. They don't let us think clear. So a lot of other things happen, and we just go through that cycle. And we also, with traumas, different things that's happened to us in our life also create those same triggers. Those things get in the way of making good decisions because we're not in our prefrontal cortex. We're still inside of our amygdala in the chaotic state, in the fight, flight, or freeze. where we're always protecting ourselves and defending ourselves, and sometimes we just got to let go and let that down a little bit so we can make all these things happen. And then the amygdala, we went through those steps. We taught you some breathing exercises, and that'll bring us down. I'm going to stop right here because this is where I want to kind of go. So, with all that in mind, we ask you guys to be thinking the last 2 weeks, well, the last 2 times I was here, we ask you to start thinking about the things, a thought or two, especially with your journal, that might be hindering you. And I know for a fact that some of you caught things. I'm not going to ask you to say it out loud because they're personal to you. But there's things in our life that we catch that hopefully you said, wait, what am I thinking to? And you've identified some things that you think, that's not really getting me where I want to go. What do I do with it? Anybody been there yet? Okay, we got a lot of heads nodding. Because once we get trained in our brain to do that, we're going to recognize things that aren't true or things that are negative that are taking us down the wrong path and not where God's promises were. So that's kind of where we stopped, and I want to give you a couple steps before I close. So some of the steps that we talked about, we're identifying it, so you write it down. So if you had a journal, I would say write your statement or take a piece of paper out sometime when you're by your life. When you capture that thought, don't just let it pass. Take that thought captive and hold it obedient to Christ, right? So you got to see what God says about it. So what I did, I told you on last week I was going to make a sheet for you, and there's a devotion that I think it's one of the best devotions I've ever done. I promoted it last time I was here a year ago or so. It's called Fasting from Wrong Thinking. And so I went down and copied 10 of the verses and steps out of it and put it on my piece of paper for you to take home. But there's a 40-day devotion that hits one thought every day. And if you went through them, you're going to say, boy, I say a lot of those things to myself. I'm not good enough. I can't forgive. And things that we say to ourselves, then I have the reply of how God answers that. So I have the verse and the reply of what God says about that, his perspective versus your perspective. So instead of trying to cover that in the short time we have left, I made that up and it's out there because I said I'd do that for you last week. But still the same kind of point. Identifying something that you're saying that's not going to take you where you would like to go. Write it down, and now we need to correct it. So when it said, remember the unconsciously competent thing, I should have put this in there, but now it made me think. We always hear that habits, how long does it take to change a habit? Okay, we have all different kinds of answers. A lot of times people say 3 weeks, right? 21 days. That's not really true. In 21 days, you can be consciously incompetent. So that's all it does, is it makes you recognize it in 21 days. They say it takes, and I've done a lot of study on this, I've been studying this for about a year and a half now before I give this information out because I want to come up with a system. They say it takes 3 cycles of 21 days, which is 63 days. So if you want to get it all the way to the top of that, yeah, you can recognize it. But if you want to get it to where it's part of you, you can't just give it a couple weeks and say, I haven't changed yet. It's going to take 63 days. And to some of you, that sounds like a long time. Where were you 60 days ago? I mean, you got to think about that. And if you've got the rest of your life to live, 63-day investment, because you're going to pay a price one way or another, right? Let's just face it. Let's be honest. We're going to pay our price, for, whether we do it or whether we don't do it. We're going to stay where we are or we're going to change. And we have the choice. Nobody can stand up here and give you something and make you do anything. But all we can do is give you information that if you choose to use it, can change your life. But it's not going to be for nothing. It's not going to be easy. It's a discipline. And it takes 63 days. So I want to make sure I got that in there because the things I told you to write down in your journal and stuff, you got to counter that with God's thoughts and then read it to yourself for 63 days every morning. Okay? Because we have all these things that we're dragging through life. And I'm going to give you a little illustration. I'm just going to do a real short visual for you just so you can kind of see. I like visuals. I work with a lot of kids. When you do things visually, they remember it. And we do as human beings if we see something. And I'm a very simple-minded person, so I like simple stuff. And so little visuals, we say to ourselves all kinds of things. We say, well, I'm not good enough. And we pick up his bag, and I didn't take time to label them all, but we pick up his bag that says, I'm not good enough, right? And he said, yeah, I'm going to go through life, this is my bag, okay? And I'm not good enough. So this is one of the things that slows me down a little bit, but I can still make it, through life. And you say things like, I just can't forgive those people for what they did to me. So I got another one right here, right? So I pick it up. So I have another piece of luggage that I'm, carrying through life with me saying, man, I'm getting a little slower here going through life, especially when you got a bad leg. Carrying this stuff, I don't want to carry this stuff every day, but, we do, don't we? We take this stuff, we pick it up, and we carry it with us. And we go through life, carrying all of this stuff. And then we have another reason. But you don't understand, okay? You don't understand what I've been through. You don't understand my finances. You don't understand all these things. And you pick up another one, okay? And you're going through life. And you come along someone else, you say, man, I'd really like to help that person. I see they've got a bag here, but I don't know if I can take theirs. I'm already carrying these, and these are kind of heavy, all right? And then you have somebody come along like, Mike or Barry or Aaron or those guys and say, hey, I'll take one of those. And you're going, nah, I got it. These are my bags, And it seems like we feel like we're proud sometimes, like, look, I got these bags. I got bitterness, I got jealousy, I've got, all these things. But we've had things like trauma that happen to us. You can say, well, I've been abused, and boy, that's a big one. And that's a tough one. So now we got another one. And I could have like 10 more up here and start carrying them around. You see what I'm saying? But how easy can we go through life carrying all this stuff? You heard that verse they opened with. But I don't understand sometimes why we do that. Why do we do that? We know they're there. And I think sometimes we like to pretend they're not. And I think sometimes we do feel that pride that, look, I can carry these. I don't need no help. I got them. But what's God say about it? God says you can't serve. You can't do all the things I'm calling you to do if you're carrying all this stuff. He says, put it down. He's saying, drop it. We talked about week 2, we talked about forgetting those things which were behind, pressing towards the higher mark. And then we covered all the things that God sees for you. And when forgetting it, we didn't say, oh, if I forget these are here. I forgot I had those. And I think sometimes we're carrying them even. I just thought of that a second ago. I think sometimes we're actually carrying them and kind of forgot that we're carrying them. We're so used to it. They've been part of us for so long, we kind of forgot that we even got them. And other people see them, they go, wait, why are you carrying all those bags? I don't got no bags. What are you talking about? You're not talking about me. And they go, yeah, I can see all the bags you're carrying. Yeah, no. Okay? But God says, let them go. And be free of that stuff. So what I wanted to do, wrapping up today, was get us to that point because we've covered everything we need to cover for you to totally change your life. And if you need to go back and see and watch any of the videos that we did, because a lot of you guys were giving input on it, you can go back and say, whoa, yeah, that's right. I said I was going to let that one go. I said I was going to free that. And God says to let it go. His burden, his yoke is light. His burden is light. And his yoke's not light. He says, yoke with me, and then the burden will be light because he's with you. Right? But we got to put it down. We got to let it go. So my challenge as we finish is I really want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to think about the things that we've talked about. I want you to think about what things are holding you back from being the best you can be and being who God wants you to be. What are those things? And I'm saying don't leave this room without leaving them right here. God's calling you right now. He says, drop them. He didn't say forget you have them. Forget means not to let them control you, because if I try to go through life carrying all of those, I'm going to be slowed down. It's going to be painful. I was thinking of something a few years ago. We went to Florida with our kids and grandkids. And, I don't like traveling some areas because of you got to pack your luggage, you got to go through security, you got to get on the plane, that's kind of a hassle sometimes. If anybody's ever done that, it's kind of burdensome. And we had an opportunity. My kids were going down. They had a van. and they were going down a couple days early, and we were coming down to meet them. We gave all of our luggage, not even a carry-on we decided not even to take. We gave them all of our luggage because we were flying down. I had nothing but what I had on and my ticket in my hand. We went into the airport, walked through security, went down to the thing, got on the plane, got off the plane, came back out, got in the car, and went to our destination. And that was one of the freest feelings I think I've ever had. I'm saying, man, it's so nice not to carry all that bag. And someday, I was thinking this, I thought this was kind of funny. I think weird sometimes. And I thought, even when we transition from this life to the next, I don't think we're going to get any check-in. We want to go into eternity free. We want to go in without all that baggage. We don't need to take it with us. But a lot of you have it. And I understand because we all do. But now it's time to let it go. Now it's time to drop it. So we're going to play a song here in a second. And a song I picked because years ago, this is one of the songs that helped me let go of a lot of things. It's an old song, but a lot of you know it. And we can't put it on the video, so I have to key it up here. But when we play it, not only sing it, but I'm going to ask you at this point, come up here. Come up here and leave stuff behind. Say you're not walking out of this door without leaving at least a few of your bags, right here. And if you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, that's one of the first things you want to take care of. Come forward, and there's people up here that will help you. They'll walk you through what that looks like because you can know for sure, that you are going to go to heaven. You can know that. And Jesus Christ makes that available to us. But you know what? If you're carrying that baggage of doubt, that's one of the biggest ones there is. And you want to make sure you don't leave that. You got to leave that one here. Don't take that one back out again. Some of you come in, you go out, you come in, you go out, and you're carrying the same bag every time. It's time to let it go. So during this song, the song is ready, I see. So during this, I'm going to be up here. If these other guys want to come up here, come up and drop something. At least make a commitment that you're going to leave some baggage behind. Okay? Go ahead and play the song. And sing this song. By the way, this is an affirmation. That's why I picked it. Of who we really are. And these are the kind of things you need to be saying to yourself. Not all those negative things that, are on that sheet of paper that, I left for you. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. This is who I really am in God's eyes. This is how He sees you. So sing this song. Pray, praise Him